The night is quiet, too quiet. You step into a dimly lit parking lot, the air heavy with that uneasy stillness that makes instincts whisper before logic catches up. Most people call it paranoia. Intelligence officers call it awareness, the invisible armor that keeps them alive long before danger strikes. Where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments below. If you're watching this, don't just listen. Learn, because what you're about to discover are real spy awareness tactics that can help you in ordinary life in ways you've never imagined. Intelligence officers live by a simple creed. If you can see it before it happens, you can survive it. They are trained to read reality like a code. Every reflection, every glance, every misplaced sound. But these skills aren't just for spies slipping through hostile cities. They are for anyone who ever walks through a dark street, enters an unfamiliar room, or feels that faint hum of danger without knowing why. The first secret lies in what spies call the baseline, the normal rhythm of an environment. Whether it's a market, a subway, or a crowded cafe, professionals observe for a full minute before doing anything else. They study who talks, who moves, what's loud, what's quiet. Because once you know normal, you can spot abnormal. A person standing still too long, eyes that don't belong where they're looking, a car engine idling longer than it should. These are small signals that the untrained mind filters out, but the alert mind decodes instantly. One story often told inside intelligence circles describes a field officer walking through a crowded city in the Middle East. The crowd was thick, the noise relentless. Yet one man stood out. He wasn't looking at the shops or the road, but at faces, scanning each passerby. Within seconds, the operative knew that man was surveillance. He took a longer route, entered a store, and exited through another door. Later, it turned out he had been followed. The awareness had saved him. For civilians, this same principle can save lives in smaller but real ways. Imagine noticing a stranger who seems to appear in multiple places, behind you in the metro, then again near your car, or realizing that a parked vehicle has been running for several minutes, though no one's entering or exiting. These details might seem trivial, but they form patterns, and patterns are the language of threat detection. Spies are also masters of 360-degree awareness, what they call the bubble. In public, they never shrink into phones or isolate themselves from their surroundings. Every reflection in a shop window, every shadow under a streetlight becomes a silent sensor. You can do the same, not through fear, but through mindful observation. When you walk, take note of who's in front, who's behind, and what changes when you turn corners. In psychology, this practice is known as situational scanning, a technique used in both intelligence and countercrime units worldwide. But awareness isn't just about spotting threats. It's about understanding how you appear to others. Spies constantly manage their signature, the subtle cues that make them blend in or stand out. They avoid wearing identifiable accessories, predictable routes, or anything that draws attention. For everyday people, this means something simpler: unpredictability. Don't always park in the same spot. Don't post live locations online, and avoid patterns that make your life an open book. Every predictable move is an invitation to those who observe quietly. Another critical spy lesson is what operatives call the pause. It's a simple habit. Before entering or exiting any place, whether a lift, a door, or a car, stop for just 2 seconds. Look, listen. That pause recalibrates your senses. It's during those 2 seconds that many professionals have detected ambushes, pickpockets, or even small hazards like moving vehicles. In one training module used by intelligence agencies, recruits are taught to always own their threshold, meaning every time they pass through a doorway, they assess both sides before proceeding. You can adopt this same principle. It doesn't slow you down. It sharpens you. Then comes the mirror test, a psychological technique that spies use to confirm intuition. When someone makes you uneasy, subtly mirror their actions, slow down your pace, change direction, or stop at a store window. If they do the same, it's not coincidence, it's confirmation. But rather than panic, the trained response is calm redirection. Enter a public space, engage someone nearby, and never confront directly. In awareness psychology, this is known as breaking contact without escalation. It's how diplomats and agents alike diffuse situations quietly, without confrontation or risk. Perhaps one of the most underrated spy skills is the power of stillness. Intelligence officers are taught that silence and observation often reveal more than action. In moments of stress, most people react impulsively. They run, argue, or freeze. But a spy's greatest weapon is pause. By slowing the mind when adrenaline spikes, you regain control over your body's stress chemistry. Breathing slows, eyes focus, thoughts clarify. In real-world safety, this translates to measured decision-making under pressure, during arguments, accidents, or emergencies. Spies also study human microbehaviors, the fleeting, almost invisible cues that reveal truth or deceit. When speaking to someone who might be deceptive, intelligence officers don't fixate on words. They track timing, tone, and facial micro-expressions. For instance, a delayed smile, a dry swallow, or avoidance of pronouns, the car hit instead of I hit, are all signs of discomfort. You can apply these cues in daily interactions not to accuse, but to stay alert to inconsistencies that could matter in negotiations, sales, or even personal safety. And while much of spy training sounds distant and cinematic, the real essence of tradecraft is remarkably human: emotional control. Spies endure interrogations, fear, and loss, but their training focuses less on suppression and more on compartmentalization. It's the mental technique of separating emotion from immediate action, feeling later, thinking now. In emergencies, this keeps panic from hijacking logic. You can practice this by rehearsing calm responses to stressful scenarios: a car accident, a home alarm, or a sudden confrontation. The mind, like muscle, remembers what it practices. Another crucial insight is trust calibration, understanding who deserves trust and how fast. Intelligence officers are taught to verify before they confide. They build trust maps, assessing consistency over time rather than charm or appearance. In daily life, this simply means noticing whether people's actions match their words and avoiding instant intimacy with strangers or new acquaintances online or offline. Most intelligence failures begin with misplaced trust, and most personal crises too. But awareness alone isn't enough. It must be habitual. That's why spies use a method called pattern reinforcement, repeating small checks until they become reflex. Every morning, they note exit routes. Every evening, they secure digital and physical environments. Over time, the brain rewires itself to notice irregularities subconsciously, a phenomenon modern neuroscience calls neural anticipation. You can achieve the same by training your senses, not through fear, but through repetition. At its heart, the spy's mindset is not paranoia, it's preparation without panic. A spy does not fear shadows. They simply refuse to ignore them. The difference between ordinary people and trained intelligence professionals isn't superhuman skill. It's deliberate attention. Awareness is not about predicting every danger, but about giving yourself the precious seconds needed to choose wisely when danger appears. One field manual summarizes it best. The most powerful weapon is not the gun or the gadget. It's the mind that sees before others do. That's the same skill you can cultivate starting today, wherever you are, whatever you do. So, stay with us. In the next, we'll decode more of these invisible arts, how spies read lies, avoid traps, and use observation as their shield. Because awareness, once learned, doesn't just save lives. It changes how you see the world itself. Truth is never loud. It hides in the quiet, in the spaces between words, in the rhythm of a breath that breaks just slightly out of time. Every intelligence officer, from field operatives to analysts, knows this. Lies are easy to tell, but hard to sustain. And that's where the trained mind separates illusion from reality. To most people, a conversation is about language, the exchange of words. To spies, it's about leakage, the involuntary signals the body releases when the mind tries to conceal. It's why agents can sit across from a seasoned deceiver, smile politely, and still walk away knowing what the other person didn't want them to see. This isn't magic. It's the science of human behavior, distilled through decades of observation. And it can be used by anyone, not to manipulate, but to protect themselves from manipulation. The key lies in baselining human truth, the same way spies baseline environments. Every person has a natural rhythm of speech, gesture, tone, and expression when they're comfortable. The trained observer studies that rhythm first. When something changes, a pause too long, a word repeated unnecessarily, a sudden dryness in the voice, the deviation becomes a clue. This principle forms the foundation of behavioral detection units worldwide. The truth isn't in the statement, it's in the shift. Take, for example, an interrogator sitting across from a suspect. The room is silent, but charged. The suspect maintains eye contact, too much eye contact. He answers quickly, but not precisely. His hands remain perfectly still on the table. For most, this might look like confidence. To a trained operative, it's over-control, the mind tightening its grip to manage its own fear. The more effort it takes to maintain a facade, the more visible that facade becomes. In daily life, these same micro-patterns can protect you. In business meetings, negotiations, or even personal relationships. When someone suddenly changes their tone when asked a direct question, when they look down after denying something, or when their gestures freeze the moment a sensitive topic arises, those are behavioral leaks. You don't need to accuse anyone, you just need to notice. Awareness, in this sense, becomes emotional armor. Spies also understand that deception doesn't always mean lying. Sometimes it's concealment by omission. In psychological terms, people often reveal more in what they avoid than in what they say. Intelligence officers listen for gaps, stories that skip over key moments, statements that use vague language like "some people" or "a friend told me." In truth, deception often lives not in the falsehood itself, but in the avoidance of precision. But the real artistry comes from synchrony analysis, observing whether a person's words and body align. When someone says, "I'm fine," yet their shoulders contract and their breathing shortens, that discordance exposes emotional dissonance. Intelligence interviewers watch for this mismatch relentlessly. When the body and the voice disagree, the body usually tells the truth. Field officers also study response latency, the time gap between question and answer. Truthful responses flow naturally from memory. False ones require construction. That half-second delay, that flicker of recall, becomes a clue. In intelligence training, they say, truth lives in reflex, lies live in rehearsal. However, one of the most misunderstood aspects of spy training is that operatives are not human lie detectors in the cinematic sense. They don't spot lies instantly. Instead, they collect microsignals, dozens of them, and look for clusters. A single sign means nothing, but 3 or 4 patterns repeating across different contexts: avoidance, tension, over-control, delayed responses, that forms a behavioral pattern. For ordinary people, this approach can redefine how you navigate human interaction. It's not about suspicion, it's about discernment. A negotiator who notices micro-expressions can detect hesitation behind promises. A parent who observes a child's tone shift can sense distress before it's spoken. Awareness bridges the gap between what's said and what's meant. Another powerful spy principle is anchoring observation. Before deep conversation, operatives anchor behavior with neutral questions, something unrelated to the mission. They observe tone, rhythm, gestures when the subject is relaxed. Then, when sensitive questions arise, they compare. The human body cannot fake consistency under cognitive load. This method, borrowed from intelligence work, is now used in corporate risk assessments and even security interviews. There's also the language of distance. When people lie, they unconsciously create emotional distance from the act. They say, "The wallet went missing," instead of, "I lost the wallet." They replace personal pronouns with neutral terms to reduce ownership. Trained officers pick up on this instantly, not to trap, but to understand. Distance in language often reflects distance from truth. Yet, even with these methods, the best intelligence professionals are deeply aware of confirmation bias, the danger of seeing what you expect. They never rely on instinct alone. Each clue is a data point. Each signal is cross-checked. They know that emotion clouds observation, anger, suspicion, or even admiration can distort perception. That's why spy training focuses heavily on emotional neutrality. They don't rush to judgment. They simply gather. It's patience that exposes deception, not aggression. On another level, deception detection isn't just about others. It's also about ourselves. Spies are trained to confront their own biases, fears, and desires, because self-deception is the most dangerous of all. The operative who lies to himself about what he feels, believes, or fears becomes vulnerable to manipulation. The same is true for civilians. The first step to reading truth in others is learning honesty within oneself. Intelligence professionals use behavioral baselining even in their personal lives. They memorize how colleagues behave when they're relaxed, stressed, or hiding information. Over time, this awareness becomes instinctive. It's not cynicism, it's clarity. The world becomes transparent, not because it changes, but because perception sharpens. Perhaps the most remarkable insight from spy psychology is that liars often reveal truth through contradiction. They may deny involvement while offering unnecessary justifications. They may feign indifference, but display defensive behavior. The more energy a person invests in appearing truthful, the more visible their anxiety becomes. This is why intelligence officers often use silence strategically. They ask a question, then simply wait. Human discomfort fills silence faster than sound. In that space, the truth slips through. Real espionage has little to do with gadgets or chases. It's a war of observation. Every look, every blink, every word is intelligence. And while ordinary life may not demand counterintelligence skills, these same abilities, patience, pattern recognition, composure, form the backbone of safety and understanding in a chaotic world. The art of reading deception isn't about exposing others. It's about empowering yourself. When you can read sincerity from manipulation, confidence from fear, truth from theater, you stop being controlled by illusion. You become aware not just of others, but of the hidden architecture of human behavior. Because in the end, spies and civilians share the same battlefield, the terrain of trust. The difference is, spies are trained to see the cracks before they widen. And with awareness, you can too. To disappear is not to hide, it's to blend. Real intelligence officers don't vanish into the shadows like in movies. They dissolve into the noise of the world around them. In the field, invisibility isn't about black suits or secret tunnels. It's about becoming unremarkable. The art of vanishing lies not in escape, but in attention control, shifting perception so that others see you, yet never notice you. The first rule every operative learns is simple. Visibility is not exposure. You can stand in a crowd of hundreds and remain invisible if no one remembers you after. That's the secret of fieldcraft, the mastery of behavioral camouflage. Instead of running from sight, spies make themselves ordinary. They dress one level below their surroundings, avoid brand logos, neutralize body language, and move with the rhythm of the environment. To blend is to belong. In everyday life, this principle can save more than a mission. It can protect privacy and safety. Being invisible doesn't mean being paranoid. It means being conscious of what draws attention. The loudest voice, the brightest color, the most predictable habit, all become beacons in a world full of eyes. The modern world is built on surveillance, cameras, algorithms, observation, but even here, the timeless rule of subtlety applies. What blends is what survives. In intelligence training, new recruits are often dropped into a foreign city with one instruction: move without being followed. Most fail the first time. They try too hard to appear casual, and in doing so, they stand out. But the seasoned officers don't force anonymity. They flow into it. They adopt the local rhythm, not the appearance. The human eye detects what's out of sync. Movements too quick, pace too slow, attention too intense. When you match the tempo of the crowd, you disappear inside it. This same skill translates into situational invisibility for civilians, being able to move safely through unfamiliar areas, travel unnoticed, or navigate crowded spaces without drawing focus. Awareness becomes your cloak. You don't just look, you observe what others fail to. Who's watching others instead of walking? Who pauses when you pause? Which vehicles appear more than once? You don't react, you register, and in awareness lies control. Spies also understand that to vanish, you must first erase predictability. The human mind craves routine, but predictability is the map that others follow. Operatives vary routes, timing, and even subtle gestures. They know that the first step to being untraceable is to break the pattern. For the average person, this doesn't mean living in fear. It means being mindful of digital and physical routines. Don't share schedules online. Avoid checking in at predictable times. Randomness in the intelligence world is a defense mechanism. There's a term used in counter-surveillance called gray movement. It means moving without emotional signature. The gray man doesn't avoid people. He simply gives no reason for people to focus on him. His walk is neither hurried nor slow, his posture neutral, his gaze scanning, but never lingering. He engages when needed, withdraws when not, and always seems to have a reason to be wherever he is. For operatives, this is survival. For civilians, it's the key to safe navigation in uncertain environments. But invisibility is not only physical, it's psychological. The most effective agents cultivate mental quiet. In chaotic settings, most people reveal themselves through nervous energy, fidgeting, over-talking, self-correcting. The spy remains internally still. That stillness radiates control, and control diffuses attention. Even in crowds, calm is invisible. Chaos attracts eyes. Another aspect of vanishing is information silence. Operatives are trained to share little, even in casual conversation. They understand that curiosity is a form of surveillance. Every detail you reveal is a thread that can be pulled. They speak with precision, not secrecy, offering just enough to satisfy, never enough to expose. For ordinary people, this is a shield in the digital age. Every photo, post, or personal detail shared publicly becomes a piece of a puzzle someone else could use. Privacy today is not paranoia, it's power. Spies also perfect exit discipline, the art of leaving without trace. They clean the space, remove identifiers, and leave nothing that connects. In psychological terms, it's about closure, knowing when to leave an environment or relationship before it becomes unsafe. Emotional awareness is part of operational awareness. Staying too long, whether in a conversation that feels off or a situation that doesn't align, erodes safety. Vanishing sometimes means knowing when to walk away. Another key to invisibility is silhouette control. Even without seeing your face, people recognize you by movement, shape, and rhythm. In intelligence operations, changing pace, posture, or gait can alter perception dramatically. For civilians, this awareness helps prevent being tracked or profiled. It's not about disguise, it's about understanding what makes you recognizable and managing it consciously. In high-risk regions, intelligence officers also use anchor points, familiar, safe zones that they can reach when under pressure. These aren't secret hideouts, but ordinary public spaces, cafes, markets, or transport hubs that offer both anonymity and escape options. In real life, having anchor points means knowing safe places nearby wherever you go, well-lit areas, populated venues, or trusted establishments you can retreat to if something feels wrong. Awareness isn't only about what's around you, it's also about where you could go if the unexpected happens. Invisibility at its core is not about hiding, it's about harmony. The spy doesn't fight the environment, they flow through it. When you synchronize with your surroundings, walking, speaking, and reacting naturally to the world's rhythm, you become less a target and more a part of the landscape. The secret is subtlety. In a loud world, subtlety itself is power. Perhaps the most profound lesson from intelligence work is that true invisibility begins inside the mind. The operative who can detach from ego, from the need to be noticed or validated, achieves a kind of freedom that no disguise can match. They no longer crave visibility, so they no longer fear its loss. In psychology, this is called self-containment, the state where inner calm replaces external confirmation. Such people move quietly through chaos, unaffected, unseen. For civilians, this mental state translates to resilience. The calm mind attracts less danger, less conflict, and less chaos. You become the still point in a moving world, aware, adaptive, and in control. You don't need to hide, you simply stop broadcasting. In the end, the art of vanishing is not about disappearing from the world, it's about mastering your place within it. When you understand how attention works, what draws it, what deflects it, what commands it, you control the narrative of your own presence. That's what every spy learns, and what every person can use. The invisible are not unseen because they lack light. They are unseen because they understand where the light falls. The final weapon of a spy isn't a gadget or a gun, it's the mind. In the intelligence world, survival begins long before the danger appears. Agents are trained to think under pressure, to slow down time when others panic, and to see order in the middle of chaos. In the field, hesitation can mean exposure, but emotion can mean destruction. The ones who endure are those who think clearly when the world turns dark. When an operative feels the tension tighten, footsteps behind them, a conversation gone wrong, an operation unraveling, they do not react, they respond. That single difference defines the line between survival and collapse. Reacting is instinct, responding is intelligence. It's the art of stepping outside fear, analyzing it and using it. In reality, most people freeze not because they lack courage, but because their brains are overwhelmed by uncertainty. Spies learn to disarm that chaos by asking one question: what do I control right now? The answer is almost always the same: breath, body, focus. They anchor themselves in the present moment, letting the storm pass without being swept away. It's a lesson that applies beyond espionage. In every crisis, awareness is the first rescue. Agents also practice stress inoculation, gradual exposure to pressure until fear becomes familiar. The goal is not to erase fear, but to redefine it. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop. When trained correctly, adrenaline sharpens clarity instead of clouding it. Spies harness it, directing the energy outward, never inward. Civilians can use the same technique, learning to breathe, pause, and observe before deciding, transforming panic into control. Another mental weapon is detachment from outcome. Operatives know that obsession with what might happen paralyzes action. They focus only on the next correct move, not the perfect one. In survival, small steps forward matter more than flawless plans. The key is progress, not prediction. Spies are also trained to build mental redundancies, always thinking 3 exits ahead. If Plan A fails, Plan B is already in motion, and Plan C is quietly forming. This mindset turns crisis into choreography, the illusion of calm even when everything burns around them. The technique isn't just tactical, it's psychological. Preparedness breeds confidence, and confidence silences fear. Perhaps the most powerful survival principle comes from emotional discipline. In the intelligence world, emotion is both a weapon and a weakness. Anger, panic, or pride all reveal patterns, all expose. Agents learn to control emotion without killing empathy. They remain human, but measured. For ordinary people, emotional regulation is the essence of survival. In arguments, accidents, or unexpected danger, calm is armor. In any situation of distress, a threat, a loss, or sudden fear, the spy's mantra is simple: observe, orient, decide, act. Observation comes before escape. Calm before reaction. This formula works in every crisis, from street encounters to natural disasters. You don't need training to use it, only the will to pause when others rush. The greatest spies survive not because they are fearless, but because they are mindful. They don't try to control everything, only themselves. They know that the battlefield begins in the mind, and so they live by one truth: control your thoughts, and the world loses control over you. In the end, these lessons, awareness, calm, invisibility, and control, are not secrets of espionage, but of life itself. Intelligence training simply reveals what human resilience has always known. Clarity saves. Whether in an unfamiliar street, an uncomfortable situation, or a moment of panic, the spy's mindset can protect anyone who understands it. Because sometimes, survival isn't about strength, it's about stillness.